I got to get people's attention.
Thank you all for hanging in with us tonight or this afternoon. Here we are, a nice intimate group. So in 1981, after having learned pine needle basketry from a friend, Nancy Baskett met a Cherokee man at a bead store in Yakima, Washington. Mr. Lee shared his family collection of pine needle baskets with her and told her the stories behind them. The collection included a cradle board and an effigy bear basket. After offering to buy the collection, he told her, "Your job is not to buy these baskets. Your job is to make them." Afterwards, she helped form the first basketry guild in the United States. She moved to Illinois, where she helped form another basketry guild and experimented with cattail leaves because no pine needles grew there. Teaching her skill at national basketry conventions, she found that pine needle baskets took too long and were too expensive for the workshops. In 1989, she moved to South Carolina to be closer to the longleaf pines, where she could collect her own needles. I'm glad you came here. In South Carolina, Nancy was juried into the South Carolina Arts Commission as an artist in education. Traveling to different parts of the state, she found that kudzu vines split translated into baskets quicker and easier for students, but not all areas had those either. So she adapted the materials to whatever plant species grew closest to the schools in which she was working. This ensured the availability of economically viable resources for all income levels. For the last 15 years, Nancy has researched and shared her basketry and storytelling skills at primitive skills gatherings, powwows, and through National Indian Education Association as a presenter of traditional and contemporary baskets. Her baskets have been used in displays in the Shield Museum and the Barnwell Museum. She shares basketry and storytelling at the Pickens County Museum and Haygood Mill. The McKissick Museum recognized Nancy as a master basket maker in an apprenticeship program to a Catawba woman. Her skills were used in the TV series Young Indiana Jones, for which she made a hot air balloon basket from cattail leaves, and in the movie The Last of the Mohicans, for which she made cattail leaf mats, bark baskets, and corn husk masks. Nancy has worked with Lander University, Converse College, the University of South Carolina, Furman, Columbia College, and Clemson University. She is featured on South Carolina and Alabama educational TV. We have a famous woman here. She is a founding member of the Native American Prison Program, NAPP, here in South Carolina. There are many other things that I could say about Nancy Baskett, but I'm sure you want to hear from her, not from me. For more information, you can check her website, and you will be intrigued. Thank you, Nancy. Welcome.
Thank you. Oh, thank you. Thank you from afar. Hey, I appreciate it. Osio dohiju ayonani talucha usti chiwoni chalagi. What I just said is, hello, how are you? My name is Nancy Baskett, and I know a little bit of Cherokee. I know a lot of names. The elders have given me hundreds of lessons about tradition and culture back in the day, and stories that they've allowed me to tell still. They found me about 15 years ago. There is a dichotomy here. There is a, who is your elder? How old are they? Who are they considered elders? Are they currently in disrepute? Because sometimes even elders need to have their hair combed. And for women, we didn't comb our own hair when we went to the Moon Lodge every month. And I asked one of my female elders, how come? That doesn't sound very good. We've got to stay in a state of disarray. She goes, no, we weren't allowed to comb our own hair so that other women could take care of us and do that for us. And as a woman, we don't have time very much to gather and to talk and to share things from all cultures again like we used to. We were set apart for a while so that we could take care of our spiritual and physical needs, and the husbands that we married stayed home and took care of the children. And then weren't they happy about getting us back, because they could see how long and how arduous we worked. We had a good system of it back in the day, but now it's all kind of broken up. I truly believe that it is time for a woman to run things again, so maybe the world will see that we can do anything when we put our minds together, and maybe there won't be war anymore. We've had enough of that. We had the Giga'u, the beloved woman, and she was the one who decided if the people went to war or not. And we did this by colored stones or colored beads, black and white, and we would put our stone that we chose in the dirt so that nobody would know how we would vote for war or for peace. And then when they were dug up, the Giga'u has a deciding vote. The women were the ones to elect her. They knew who was fair, who listened well, who loved deeply, and who could do a good job even when they needed to stand up and say, no, you can't. Now, some organizations pattern themselves after the Native American use of respecting elders until we tell these young punk arse kids something that they don't want to hear. And then they say that we're so-called elders. Oh, really? Okay. You can go ahead and go where you want to. You can take yourselves away from us. Because in our culture now, you can go to a different city, a different group of people. Back in the day, the Cherokee had nowhere else to go. You can't go to a different city because they're not going to accept you. You don't go out into the woods by yourself. You go with several people. If you're out there by yourself, everybody knows that you're banished. And if our kids didn't listen to their parents, to their grandparents, to the clan mother and father, then they were sent to the spiritual leaders. If they wouldn't listen to them or the Giga'u, they were banished. And they had to go take care of themselves for a year. They had to find their own shelter, their own food. And if they survived that year by themselves, they would understand how hard it is to take care of yourself by yourself. We all need each other. So those of us now who are understanding the way that we used to do it, we have to start doing this again. And the way we do it is by teaching our daughters and our granddaughters. Now, some of our kids think that we're so different, they just want to be like everybody else, and they will go far, far away from us. But if you take your kids to the powwows and to the different celebrations that some of us still have, because we're piecing ceremony together again. Our powwows are modern. This is where we invite a lot of different nations together, and hopefully they're nations that know what they're doing in the South and our dances, and they're not from up north because they do things differently. Oh, did he get an earful? He goes, I know. So the grandmas are really good about lovingly telling the younger people who are trying to do this themselves how to do it next time, to where everybody can dance and nobody's left out or behind. I take my name from a third grandmother a long, long time ago. We don't say how many grandmas back. A grandma is a grandma. And she was on my dad's side. He was Cherokee, grandma was too, and her mother, and then her mother's mother. That's who Margaret Basket was. When I found out her name, I had been making baskets for a year already. And I said, yes, we're honoring the ancestors. It's not ancestor worship. It's, hey, that's epigenetics. It can be explained by science now. And epigenetics means that you have memory from your ancestors at least 14 generations back. If you don't believe me, Google it tonight when you get home, and they'll tell you all about it. So I love when science and history come together and round out the stories that you're going to hear. And if I don't give you this preamble, you're not going to understand the story, because you don't understand the background and the culture. Where I come from, the storyteller out there, her name was Vi Hilbert. And Vi told her nephew, when I leave the earth, you need to tell the stories. You know the different dialects, and you've heard me because I've had you come with me. And Johnny Moses is his name. And he's fabulous. He's a two-spirit person. Hubba, hubba. Now, that means that, well, for the Cherokee people, I'm not speaking for everybody, but for we believe that you come back over and over again until everybody gets it right and nobody's left behind. And if that offends your spiritual sensibility, I'm sorry, I apologize now. I have a way of doing that, okay? And you can believe whatever you want to, but this is the way that I believe and what I think is true for me. Nobody needs to say, if you're not me, you're the enemy. And that's what America has come to stand for right now, and the division, and we need to put that in the middle. I don't believe the same way as you, Nancy, but I understand where you're coming from. Hey, that's a good thought. What if everybody gets to the same place and nobody's cast out anywhere? That's what I'm looking for, are hearts that are kind and open-minded, and if you don't agree with me, we just laugh about it. And using humor is a really good way to understand things that we haven't thought about before. In the Northwest Coast, they say, habu. It means, are you understanding? Are you hearing me? Do you agree with that? And every time I say habu, you say habu, then you might finally get a story. Habu? I'll drink to that. I've been waiting to talk all day. I'm going to show you this basket here. I had some, dang it, I hope I didn't break that, but I'm just going to leave it on the floor. Yeah, just put that on the floor.
Okay.
Oh,
It's not broken, it's
just can't part. If it's down there, I won't knock it down again, will I? I had to trim some curly hazelnut from my backyard. Native American people always used what was close to us. We couldn't go from here down to Charleston and use their stuff. You know, that was a long, long trip. And some of us were voyagers and explorers and could do that. Hey, that's what men are for. And you send them away to do this kind of thing, and they love us so much. They know what we would like to have once they come home. Well, these curly hazelnut, some people call them Harry Lauder walking sticks. And they're curly and they're wonderful, and they have a different kind of foliage altogether in the fall. But I had to cut some of them down. And I said, you are too beautiful to throw away. So I tried to put them together, and they fell apart. And they've been falling apart for a long time until that Friday when Helene hit. I had an apprentice that had come to work with me 6 days, and I was on the porch waiting for her, and she couldn't get down Mountain Rest because a tree blocked her path. That hurricane took our electricity out only for 14 hours. Sorry for you who have suffered for a week or more, but you know, we were very fortunate. Mom is 90. She's lived with me for 10 and a half years, and if she doesn't have anything to watch, I'm the entertainment. And that's hard for me to do. So I just started this basket for her. She called me and said, I can't get out. So I got my outlaw in-law. He's not my in-law anymore, but you know, he loves me still. And he came, and with the chainsaw, we cut the tree. Well, we didn't cut it down. It was already cut down when we got there. But we told that lady to come on down. She finished her apprenticeship with me on the day of the hurricane. And then she flew back to Chicago. So I had started this one, and to me, it looks like the mud and the destruction that was in western North Carolina and so many other parts of states here in the southeast. And it has pieces that stick up, and it has parts of bridges that aren't there anymore. And I thought, oh my gosh, I've done this for a week. I've felt so bad, and I could give away everything I owned to all of my friends, and it still wouldn't alleviate their suffering. So I said, why suffer myself? Let's make something that's beautiful out of this. And so I put this basket together, and it reminds me of the hurricane that almost destroyed, you know, large parts of the South. But it can be beautiful. It will be changed, but we can hold things together by being together and helping each other with what we know and what we believe. Habu? Oh, I told Billy Fulcher's wife that I had some things to refute, but he left. So it won't be so bad because I tease him, I tease the archaeologists and the anthropologists, and I've been doing that for 30 years, telling them what I believe to be true. And I don't have a degree like they do, and some of their degrees are a little bit old, okay? And they're based on old information, and the old people have to die before the new ones can do it with the new information that we have. And that's the truth. When he was telling you about Clovis, yeah, it's happened down there in New Mexico. You know what Clovis is? That's the next nearest town, and that's where they got their beer, those archaeologists. And so they named a whole group of people after the town that sold them the beer. And that's the other side of that story. That's why I don't like Clovis, for a whole group of people. And if you dig down deeper than Clovis, well, you can't, because you're not going to get the funding, because they have the degree and they will tell who gets the money and who doesn't. And if you dig down deeper, and his name was mentioned, Al Goodyear, he retired. And he was a cool archaeologist. And he went down to Barnwell County and he dug down deeper than Clovis. And he found the Topper site. And he carbon tested all of the artifacts they got out of there, and they tested to 50,000 years ago. Native American people, at least the ones with modern thinking, current thinking, don't believe that we come across the Bering Land Strait 12, 14,000 years ago. Maybe a few did, but if you read Vine Deloria Jr., he wrote a great book called Red Earth, White Lies. Don't worry about the title. It's nothing derogatory. If you read to the last page, you'll find out why. And he was saying pretty much that women traveling all that way and all that cold would not be able to have babies. So why would they go ahead and do that and risk their future to come across and see something they didn't know what was there or not? 50,000 years ago, there's evidence that Native people were already here. And I went down there to that Topper site, and I told that Caucasian kid, tell Dr. Goodyear he's my hero, because he's proving that what my elders told me, some of our stories are 50,000 years old. Tell him that he's proving that the elders know what they're doing. They're passing down the right information. He looked at me and said, well, it could have been the Europeans coming over. And I looked at him and said, I told my elders that. And they said, yeah, and we had to bury him somewhere. Now, not that we killed him, but if you come over here and you die and somebody's left to bury you, we were here first. We have always been here. We have stories that tell about the giant Uktena. And the Uktena is a monstrous snake. And if you don't believe me, the snakes, the pythons that they're trying to kill, that somebody let out as pets, are coming up north. And you think armadillos are bad? Wait until those things slither up here. And this big thing was mythical. Any time that a native tells a story, it's myth. It's made up. It's not true. Oh, really? I would never tell my Christian friends that the Bible is a made-up myth. That would get me stoned and ridden out on a rail real quick. And I don't want to hurt my friends like that. So why would people do that to Native people? What if part of what that story entails could be true? Native American people don't even have to believe in aliens. We believe in ancestors. Native people believe that we come from different star systems. So, our Creator's so big, can't be put into a box. It's so big, we can't even conceive of everything out there. We're only a tiny fragment of all that is in the billions and trillions of stars that are reported on the Science Channel. And if you take all this current understanding and you put it back in our stories, you're going to see how things are starting to fit. We think that we're the smartest it's ever been. We're so smart, we're killing each other. We're killing the earth. It's not real smart. So that's why we have to go back to telling the stories that hold us together. The elders wrote down their stories on white deerskin. There's some in some museums. I'm not sure who has them anymore, but everybody learned in school. Well, maybe you did, but some of us are really old. You know, I don't know what they taught you in school there, Kathy. But see, if we like you, we tease you. And if we don't tease you, there's something wrong, especially for me. Because if we can take things with a little bit of humor and you're not running out of here thinking I'm evil, hey, maybe we can talk. And maybe I can kind of curb some of my ideas and listen to some of yours, and maybe we can round out the stories together better. We only have story fragments that are left. When the Cherokee had to leave here and go to Oklahoma, it was a horrible, horrible time. And a lot of the little kids died, a lot of the old people died, so you got the kids in the middle. How intently did they listen to the elders when they had the chance? They're only going to remember some certain things. In our families, sometimes we're not even supposed to be born to our families. You know, we're cast-offs, we're throwaways by modern standards. But we know that we have a medicine and a purpose and a mission for being here. And some of us have been fortified to work with controversy, and hopefully we can do it in a good way so we don't throw it back in somebody's face and try to hurt them. We try to take the insults and we put them down and we bury them in the ground. And there are all kinds of stories about the people who did that, and the white tree of peace with the short little pine needles. I don't use those. That would send you to the institution from whence it said you have to make baskets to get out of it. They're too short. I came down to the south to get the really long needles like this, and they're from the longleaf pine. I've been doing that for 40 years now. A friend showed me, and I knew I would do it for the rest of my life. So that's when I took Margaret Baskett's last name. This is who I am. I am not owned by any person. I don't stay married well. I don't know if you caught on to that already, but it's just easier for me to go and do and to not have to explain all this stuff, because it takes a guy too long to listen. So in the presence of my current family, it's easier for me to stay home and take care of Mom and to sneak out to a powwow now and again, or to a beautiful place like this where we can learn together. Abu? In 1750, that's what the Cherokee say is modern times. After that, we'd have so much interference by everybody else who wanted us to be them. A lot of our traditions started falling away. In 1820, they canceled all of the clan system. And the clans are the family groupings. We have 7 of them. 7 is sacred for a lot of Native people, and it stands for the Creator. And I will do that in my work. I'll put 7 rows of this and 7 rows of that, because I always want to remember there's something a lot greater than me, and that helps me learn and tell the stories that have the medicine for the people. So I'm going to tell this story to start with because I think it's important, and there are several other ones I'm going to tell too. If you have any questions for me, just raise up your hand and ask it, because this is very informal. Abu? Abu. Good. Long, long time ago, there was a Lakota man, and he was sitting there raggedy in front of his teepee, and his hair wasn't combed, and his clothes weren't clean, and he had lost his wife a year ago. And he was sad, and the people tried to tell him that we needed him, and he just sat there. And he was sad and just mourned. So one day he saw a figure riding toward him on a horse, and he couldn't see very well, but as the figure came closer, there was a woman on this horse, and her hair was a mess, and he looked closer, and he recognized her as his wife that had died the year before. And she stopped the horse in front of him and said, "Husband, I love you, but your mourning for me and not participating in life holds me back too. I can't go on unless you start living your life here. It was my time to go, but it's not yours." And he understood that. And he kind of made a decision that he would go back to the people, that he would listen, that he would take care of himself, that he would again rejoin life. And as his wife turned the horse around, he looked at her one more time, and she was the beautiful person that he knew she was when she left the earth. Habu. We choose to mourn only for a year for Cherokee people because you're so important. You were left living, and we need to have you in our presence. We need your medicine. We believe that everybody has a purpose, a spirit, a medicine, and some of the elders in the Northwest Coast say we don't teach our children all the same thing because if we do, we don't need each other. So I'm not the one, the keeper of the word or the keeper of the songs and the stories, but this group is, and I appreciate every word. I've never heard so many songs in my life. Woo! 2 hours worth. All right! And everybody got to drum, and the guys can drum. I've seen them. Hey, I don't know where you got those handsome young people that carried it in, but they're sure not here now. It's all right. It's all right. I guess it's just meant for us girls. There are all kinds of stories. I told Sky Woman before. I won't do that again. There are pine trees. My friend Billy was talking about, in the time when we were fighting for no reason. Oh, really? Well, he didn't know the story, and I'm going to have to tell my friend, but we never have a chance to talk to each other, okay? All of our elders don't know everything either. So if we can come and talk about some of the traditional ways, then we all know more. And then you can question me on who the elders are, but I can't just trot them out, because the ones that taught me are now gone. They were in their 80s and 90s when they left. And I was really grateful to be with them at all. There was a time when the men, and they had the war leader, because we have a war leader and a peace leader. The war leader wears red, and the peace leader wears white. And the white peace leader for the Cherokee people cannot have blood on his hands. He cannot hunt. He has to count on the goodwill of the people to make sure that he has enough to eat. And the war chief thinks differently than the peace chief. They just have a different mindset, so you need to have two different kinds of people. Well, they had the war chief and his son and a contingent of people to go to talk to the Choctaw people, because the Cherokees had a lot of good harvest seasons, and they had a lot of children, and they needed more room, and they went to talk to the Choctaw to see if the Choctaw could move back a little bit so they wouldn't have to go to war over that. We had diplomatic relations. And so we went down there, and there's a big feasting and a celebration, and it goes on for days because you have to have time to get to understand the people. Well, this young kid saw the other war chief, and he had a beautiful daughter, and she was conducting herself very admirably. And the Cherokee guy saw the Choctaw girl and go, and I'm going to talk to her. So this guy went out, and he was supposed to be listening to all these meetings and goings on, so when he got to be the war chief too, he would know how to do it. And he just wanted to compose love songs on his flute. And so he did that. Where were the men? They knew he wasn't there. They heard him practicing on that love flute because maybe they had done it too, trying to woo a wife. Well, these two kids got together and they decided that they loved each other, but they're from opposing, kind of warring factions here. How are they going to work that out? So he says, you meet me by this tree out here, and I'll come back for you because I've got to go with the guys back home, and then I'll bring you back to Cherokee territory. It's beautiful there, and if you don't like it, we don't have to get married, and I'll bring you back. So they concluded that the Choctaw were going to have to move down the road a ways, and this young woman was going to meet her intended husband at the appointed place, and when he came to find her, he found her dead. And he was really sad. And He didn't know what had happened, but he found out by listening that she was killed by her own people because she was going to leave with them, and they were really kind of mad about the arrangements because they had to move everything. He didn't even go home. He was so sad. He waited there, and he died too. From that place where their bodies were grew up this plant, and today we call it the Cherokee sweet shrub. And it grows in the side of my yard. And it was there before I moved in. And the more I cut it down, the faster it grows. And I've cut it down for classes of 20 people at a time, 3 or 4 times, and it still grows up for me every single year, reminding me of this story. The women need to watch the young girls to see what they're doing. Are they listening? How are they behaving? And the men need to listen to the young men to see what they're doing too, in order for us to have people interested in the traditions to grow it again so that they can take over when we're not here. This beautiful bush has a little brown flower on it that smells really sweet, and you can scratch the red stem and it smells good too. So I love when the stories are there before I even know what the story is. Abu? You can look around and the people that you meet point you like neon signs to what you're supposed to do. I remember when Kathy Nelson and I, in like 1989 or 90, went down with the Edisto. And those kids were practicing drumming. And they were young kids. Now they got kids of their own, at least as old as when we met them. And remember those 2 kids that came out and they were talking very badly to that one girl, and you and I looked at each other and said, that kid shouldn't be talking to her like that. But you were just kind of new, and I was really new, and I'd never seen him before. But I wanted to tell that kid, this is not the way you talk to a young woman. But I didn't, and I let it go. Oh, now, 30 years later, I'm not letting that go. And if Native people are traditional, they will listen to you. They might get smart mouth. We've got a way to fix that too. This one kid smart mouthed me, and I was at a powwow telling stories, and he's behind. We don't tell it like that. You're not a member of our nation. Wah, wah, wah. And he's talking right in my ear, and I'm trying to tell a story. And I tried to tell the story the best I could, and when I was done, my eyes get like this. When my eyes get like this, my kids are knowing they're this close to getting something they didn't ask for, but yes, you did. So I turned around and I made sure the mic was off. You don't want a hot mic moment like this when you're going to talk to somebody that needs to be disciplined, helped out so they can grow. And I said, what is it that makes you think you can talk to an older person from any culture the way that you're talking to me now? Because I don't have to talk to you. I said, fine, I'll talk to the person who brought you here. So I talked to my elder that gave me all these stories, and he talked to the man who brought him, and I said, why does he think that he's so hot? And then I heard his voice, and he was one of the best singers, and he was highly praised for his singing, and he took that ego out to do anything that he wanted to do, and he was barely 15. Well, I know that my friend talked to that young man because I saw him again at a powwow in Alabama. And he took one look at me, and his eyes got great big, and he melted into the background, and he never said anything loud again. Sometimes our kids need to be brought up in the traditional ways. And my kids just wanted to be like everybody else. And I couldn't be like anybody else. I'm me. And it takes my daughter she's 46. Hey, she's liked me for the last 3 years. Yes, I win. The grandkids see you in a different light. They're not with you all the time, except I raised the little one, Jadri, for 6.5 years of her life because her mama had to go to charm school. That's what we call it. You find something bigger and badder than your mama to set you down and let you have a time for yourself. And then I could raise this little girl as my own, and she's an old people's child. And old people can do a great service for that grandchild and take them to ceremony and powwow to plant a good foundation. So Jade, the other day at 26, she says, Nana, could I be your apprentice? And that made my heart sing. Okay, but now we have to get some pine needles. So her job was to get some really long pine needles that my friend, who happens to live in Charlotte where Jade does, and she went over and she got the needles and was very kind. And so she'll be bringing them back to me next weekend. And maybe after my total knee replacement, because we can be bionic now, then I'll have time to sit down with her some and show her again how to start, because she's already done that. We have to find times to be together with the younger people and sit at the feet of the old people. They only might know certain things, but those certain things combined with what you know and what other older people know makes a beautiful book of many pages, full of illustrations that we've made together because we were there. And what we remember needs to go down in a book so that the younger people will remember. Habu? Long, long time ago, there were some boys. And they were coming into their round house at the Cherokee story. And one boy comes in and sits down at the table, and he says, hey, Mom, what's for dinner tonight? I'm really hungry. She said, stew. Go out and get me some sticks. I'll start the stew for you right now. He goes, I'm not doing that. That's a girl's job. Do it yourself and make sure my dinner's ready tonight. And that mom's eyes get big like mine, and she let him go out. Another boy came into his roundhouse and said, hey, Mom, what's for dinner? I'm really hungry. She said, stew. Go out and get me some water from the river, and when we could drink the river, water, and I'll start the stew for you now. He goes, no, that's a girl's job. Do it yourself and make sure my dinner's ready. Those mamas got together and invited a grandmother in to talk to them who knew more than they did. Women are strong and powerful people when we meet together. And they said, Grandmother, here's what's going on. Our boys have never done that to us before. What do we do now? She goes, oh, tonight when they come in, here's what you do. And she whispered the plan in their ears. Those boys came in, all 7 of them, and they were sitting at the table waiting for something good to eat, and they looked in their stone bowl, and what they had in there was water and an old rock. Well, it was kind of an old rawhide that they used in the stickball game, because that's what they were doing, playing stickball real hard. And they said, we can't eat this, you don't love us, we're leaving here and we're never coming back. And they left the house angry, and they went and danced down by our 7-sided town council that you can see up in Cherokee, remade one. We don't use it anymore. We've got modern with lights and bathrooms. But back in the day, you could see how it looked. And they danced around that thing 7 times, and they were saying, little people, Youngwood Junastiga, take us home. We don't want to live here anymore because our moms are mean to us. And the little people said to themselves, why would we want guys like that in a town like ours when they won't even listen to their moms? Oh, we'll give them a new song to sing, and a new job too. And they said, well, sing this, boys. And they were singing that song, and they were dancing around, and maybe it was the feather dance. I don't know. But their feet started growing light like feathers, and they started floating up off the ground. Well, the moms came out of their roundhouses, and they were trying to work out the problems they had with those boys, and one mom saw her son about that high in the sky, and she took his stick, and she leaped up and grabbed his foot, and she pulled him down. But she pulled him down so hard, the ground covered over him, and she knew she'd never see him again. So she was sad, and she cried tears, and from those tears in the ground grew up a pine tree. We call it noji. And today I make beautiful baskets out of the pine needles, knowing that they're full of bright light like stars, because that's what happened to that little kid. He joined his other 6 friends who shouldn't have done that for a little kid. They should have been a better influence. And they all went up, and you could see them tonight, because there's not going to be any rain. Hasn't been any rain for 5 weeks. Hopefully we'll get some soon. But you look up there, and there's 3 stars right in a row. Everybody else calls it Orion's belt, but we Cherokee call it Kanadi. And you look at the belt, and it shows you a little cluster of usually 6 stars you can see, but once in a while you can see that little boy, and he's still up there. And Everybody calls them the Pleiades or the sisters, but we call them Ani Juja, which means the boys. Habu. When you're teaching your kids about nature, connect them to a story. They're going to remember that. And if it's funny, they're going to remember it more. A lot of our kids in school, I'm an artist in education, have been since 1990. I go in there and tell those kids stories and make them make a basket or paper out of kudzu, and they like what they're doing. I went to one school for 15 years because they wanted those kids in the 4th grade to have the Nancy basket experience. Nobody messes with me because I want to get you back and you got something to do right away, and I don't talk too long. But that was then and this is now. And I make the pine needle baskets with lightning in it. I got to make more. I make them also with the Catawba pottery because we need to combine cultures. But for the, what was I saying? About the pine needle basket? I'm trying to keep you awake, Winnie. I'm talking a lot. And there you got up early. That's why I modulate my voice. And if you don't keep me on track, then everybody goes to sleep. You know. I don't know. Sometimes I'm supposed to say some things and sometimes I'm not. I might think about it later. That's what happens when I don't have a set. I don't do one song and then another one and do it the same way because I would bore myself to tears and I'd never do it again. So I have to see who my audience is and what stories I think need to be told. Habu? Long time ago, there was a coyote, and he was howling on a hill. Hey, save that for afterwards, all right? I saw that. Well,
it was in between.
Okay, fine. What is it?
Well, you said you made the basket with lightning. I was wondering
Oh, that's the one. Yeah. Okay, then I'll launch into the coyote story, but you got to remind me to do that too, because you're the youngest one in here, I can tell. Good on you. Thanks for listening. Lightning is my family design. And I was dreaming black and white lightning all night long. And I said, hey, Creator, I got these 6 kids, okay? I'll start the basket, and I know that I'm supposed to put the 4 designs in it. Just let me sleep. Well, yes, so I stayed up for an hour or two, sitting in the chair in the bedroom, making this basket. But then I was able to go to sleep. I finished that basket. But after a while, I go, well, Nancy, you're really making things up, you know? Why do you think you're so powerful that you can have lightning for your family design? So one night it was raining and it was storming, and we had this big house out in the country that was owned by your uncle.
Jim's uncle.
Yeah, Jim's uncle. Well,
My uncle.
yeah, well, okay, Jim's uncle. And they sent Melissa and Jim out there to make sure we were kosher. And that's not funny because I'm not Jewish. You know, I'll get in trouble but you know, if I don't offend anybody, then you're not listening. I mean it in a good way. So it was thundering and lightning out there, and nobody was around, and the kids were sleeping, and my husband at the time says, you're going to go out? And, yeah, I said, I got to go out and dance. So I went outside, and I danced naked in the rain, ladies, all by myself. And I was grooving, and I was loving the energy of that storm. And I knew it was time to go back in the house. And when I went back in the house, my husband handed me a towel, and I put it over me, and that's when the lightning hit the screen door, the metal screen door right above my head, and I heard in my head, don't question it anymore. This is your design. It left a mark. I don't know if you ever knew about it, but it left a mark there, and I went in and I didn't question it anymore. All kinds of strange things like this happen to me because I am open to it. And I know that it's not evil, even though dominant current society can't explain this stuff. There's so much more than what we think is real in awakening life. And sometimes it happens in dreams. Habu? I was out there to a new Green River Preserve. I go up like this in the mountain, and it's an hour up to get there. And I tell stories to the kids at night in this great big camp, and there were 120 kids out there. And they took me to a petroglyph rock. They call it Long Rock. And it goes out like this. And I had my back to the setting sun, and they do this right as evening sets. And before it gets too dark, we have to walk back on that rock and go back into camp. Well, I was telling stories, but then I look at the counselors, and they're looking kind of concerned, and they're looking up in the sky, and I looked around, and it was stormy. And you could see the clouds coming in from both sides, and they're thinking, they probably want me to stop talking and go get in the buses. I said, don't worry, that's just my wind messenger friends, my family, checking to see if what I'm saying is true or not. Because if it's not, they're going to take me out right here. And as soon as they said that, lightning crashed on both sides of the trees, but not a drop fell on the rock where we were. And as soon as the rain let up, I started talking. And then we slowly went back and got on those buses without a drop on us. Now, how does that happen? Did I do that? No. But nature does very different kinds of things for certain people. I went out there, about a month later, and I was telling stories at night, right? So I'm going to tell you the story, which brings into the coyote story. I'm going to tell you that story, and as I finished it, this string of stars goes in the sky for about 5 minutes, and the kids go, look, she's telling the story, there are the stars. And they go down, and I didn't know what they were until they looked it up online, and it was Elon Musk's Starlink. Hey, I didn't call him up and said, right at this time, I'm finished, can you send them over? You know, they've got a prescribed course. So that was pretty cool, too. And I said, well, don't expect any more, because, that's pretty outstanding. Here's how that story goes. Long, long time ago, that coyote was howling on a hill in Walhalla near my house. And he was saying in his language, hey, want one of you pretty stars up there dance with me? I'm a good-looking coyote. I got a lot of good dance moves. Oh, which one of you will dance with me? Western, northern, southern star, they said, Eastern Star said, Coyote, we're not dancing with you. You don't follow through. You say you're going to do something and you don't. But the kind Southern Lady Star, she said, Coyote, I see that you're a handsome coyote and I'll dance with you, but you got to promise to dance all night long. Oh, he said, I will. Just take me up there with you, will you? And she did. She bent her hands down, she picked that coyote up, and they're dancing in the sky. And he's looking into her eyes, and she's looking into his, and they're dancing for hours and hours. And after a while, the coyote says, hey, pretty Southern Star Lady, don't you think we need to sit down and have a drink of water? She said, Coyote, you promised to dance with me all night long. It's our job as stars to twinkle and twirl up here and show the children, the sky people love them. Fine, he says, I can dance as long as you can. And he put on his best moves, and he was popping and locking and doing all the dances I don't know how to do because I'm old and I got a limp. But he was dancing really hard, and that old coyote, he stepped on his own tail. Ow! He let go of the Star Lady's hands, and he fell out of the sky. My native friends down there in the Southwest, they go, yeah, we've got that story. And when Coyote falls out of the sky, he lands down here in Arizona so hard he makes a deep, long ditch. And today we call it the Grand Canyon. And my friends up north, they go, yeah, we've got that story too. And when Coyote falls out of the sky, he bounces up here and is now the north of the United States, and he bounces 5 times, and all these big holes fill up with water. And today we know that area as the Great Lakes. And my friend who's in biology, she goes, oh, I know what happened to all the dirt that came up out of those holes. They landed down here in Raleigh-Durham, where I live. And they're called moccasins, and they're great big circles that rhyme with moccasins. And I know, because I saw one when I was visiting my son in the Navy. He's a physician assistant with the SEALs, and only certain kinds of plants grow there today. So that's how that happened. And my friends down here said, yeah, we've got that story too. And when Coyote falls out of the sky, he deserves to have his tail catches on fire, and Coyote becomes the first shooting star. So when you're out there tonight looking up Coyote's belt, to look at the boys in the sky. And when you're out, maybe you'll see another, what you call shooting star. Because there's always another good-looking coyote. They all have a lot of good dance moves, and some southern lady star will dance with one of them somewhere. Habu. Is it really 3:30? Well, then my time is done, and I thank you so much for listening. I really appreciate it. Thank you, Winnie, thank you.
Thank y'all so much for coming, and we're so glad that you did, and we're going to do it again, and I hope you all come back again. Thank you for being with us today. Thank you, Nancy. Y'all have a great weekend.
Whoops, sure will. Okay,